And then you say we started placing exhibits on the ground and started counting. Who is doing the counting? Because it's a bit it's not clear to me where you say ORS was called to assist at the harbour, at the depot, and then you went with them, and then we then say we started counting. Who is doing the counting?
We offloaded the bags. We DPCI members, we were doing the counting.
So ORS was not counting?
No, they were not counting.
They were not part of your counting?
They were observing while we offloaded the bags, and also when we started counting, they were there.
Okay. But they left before you finished?
I wouldn't say they left before we finished, but they were there when we were counting. I think they were also waiting for a 13 number.
Well, that's not what they say. You see, again, you and Colonel Jacob, in your statements, you say that. You say they were there and they were part of the counting. At some point in his evidence, he says, well, they observed, they were standing around. So there's that commonality in your statements. You both say that. But the ORS and Colonel Jacob did amend his position when we engaged him. The ORS people, in their statements, they say they got there, your bags were offloaded, and they left to go and carry on with their job. So the waiting for the SAP 13 doesn't come into it, because they say it wasn't their operation. They were just a lift to you. They were not helping with your operation.
They assisted us in offloading the bags.
Yes.
When we started counting, they were still there, Chairperson.
And then now you say they waited for an SAP 13. You are making them part of the counting then. That's what it must mean, that they become part of that operation. And what I'm putting to you is Warrant Officer Govender and Mkhize say offloaded the bags and went on back to their job. And the issue I'm taking with you is you and Colonel Jacob say they were there in your statement. They were helping you with the counting, because that's what you're saying to us in the statement. We started counting. You said they were brought in to help, and then you then started counting. So you make them part of the counting. They clearly, in their statements, say the bags were offloaded and we left.
I don't agree with that, Chairperson. They were there when we were counting, but Officer Perumal was also there.
No, I'm not talking about Perumal. I'm talking about ORS.
Yes, they were there when we were counting.
You insist they were there?
I insist that they were there.
Even though Jacob did amend his position in his oral evidence, that he thinks they were there when you started, but yes, he agrees they did leave. They didn't stay on for the complete counting.
According to
insist.
I'm sorry to interject, Chair. According to my recollection, they were there up until we finished counting. Then they left.
Okay.
I might be mistaken, but according to my recollection, because it's been 5 years now, but I think they were there up until we finished. Is
not the explanation maybe also possibly that what you said earlier, that you discussed, you would discuss with Jacob as your superior about this operation, and maybe that's where this comes from, this commonality?
I wouldn't say that, Chair, but I'll be lying if I can say to you we never had a conversation with this discussion. We work on the same floor. Our offices are next to each other.
Yes.
But we did not discuss the statements.
You see, the other thing about it is Mpangase doesn't say that ORS assisted in the counting. So Mpangase, the two ORS people, they don't speak of them. In fact, the ORS people tell us what they did. And then Mpangase doesn't include them in the counting. It's you and Colonel Jacob who involved them in the counting. And in fact, in oral evidence, Colonel Jacob amended his position, which was initially like yours. And he said Yeah, maybe they were there. Yeah, actually, I think something to that effect. They were there when we started counting, and they, of course, left off to do their work. What concerns me is you go so far as to say that they waited for an SAP 13 as if now they were part of the operation, when in fact they were not.
Chair, they were there.
So were they part of the operation according to you?
If you contribute, you are part of the operation. You might not stay there the full time or the full duration of the operation. For the mere fact that they loaded the bags from CSC depot to SAPS's Pingo, they became part and parcel of the operation.
According to you. And so they must
They played a role. They
sorry,
played a role.
I do apologize. So they must have a record. They must, if they've done things properly, there has to be a full accounting of their role in the operation, because they are part of an operation.
They must be able to explain their involvement.
No, I'm not asking about them being able to explain their involvement. I'm asking you about the records. We know you've got a pocketbook.
Yes.
We know entries. I think earlier you said to Commissioner Kumalo that in the office now there's a book where you write down what is the operation book or diary or something. I think you said that. Yes. So I'm asking that kind of question, that if they were part of an operation, they must have a record of their own, of their participation, what they saw, what they got involved with, what they did.
Yes, sir. Yes, Chair.
Okay. Maybe let me mention to you that Colonel Jacob, who was in charge of the scene, accepted that they were not part of the operation. He accepted that all that they did was to give you a lift, to give you the drugs a lift. So they provided you with transport to take, and that's what they were called for. That's what they say in their statements. That's what he says. They were called for that. They helped transport this consignment to Isipingo. He accepts that was their limited role. You put them as part of an operation that to a point where you say they waited for the SAP 13, I think you say, yes. So there's that big difference. Apart from the fact that Mbangase does not mention them as part of his operation, he mentions you and Jacob and Duma, doesn't mention them as part of an operation, including in the counting. You're the only one that is mentioning them as part of the operation to the point of waiting for an SAP 13.
Okay, Chair, maybe let me remove the word say part of the operation, but they participated in the operation.
By giving the drugs a lift?
By conveying the drugs from the depot to the police station.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I just want to find out. So you're saying your version is that they didn't participate in the counting, or they did?
I'm still standing firm that they were there when we were counting drugs.
Okay. Just on that issue, can we go to Exhibit 244?
244.
Page 627.
Page 67.
627.
627.
Yes. Should be the second file. File 2.
Seven.
627.
627.
Yeah, it's CJC 244.
Yes, I'm there, Chair.
That's the statement of Sergeant Governor. At paragraph 5, contradicts or he disagrees, unless maybe I read this differently. He says, Sergeant Mkhize and I, together with other DPCI members, transferred these black bags from the container into the H1 marked state vehicle that I was driving. And then he says, I counted 27 such bags, right? This is now where? In the depot. Then we were escorted by Lieutenant Colonel Jacob and his team to Isipingo SAP, where we assisted in offloading the black bags. The DPCI members were busy counting the bags, the yellow and black bricks of suspected cocaine when we left the scene. Would you say he's wrong in this statement?
This is according to his version. I mean, if I remember well, when we finished counting, they were there. That is why I put it in my affidavit. So I'm unable to say that his affidavit is wrong or right.
Okay. Oh, so your version is that when we finished counting, they were still there?
They were still there.
Okay. Right. Then just to go on to, you can put that file away for, well, not too far for now.
Perhaps for completeness and to see the extent of their observations, he says, second last sentence, from my observations, each bag contained approximately 20 such bricks. I don't know whether that's from observing, counting, or from looking and estimating. I'm saying the last bit that I just said now because of the use of approximately. Because if he had actually seen the counting, he would say each bag contained. Anyway, please continue, Mr. Skakan.
Yes, so that's the, I think that makes the point. But the witness obviously is saying that's his version. When you were at on your paragraph 12 of your statement, you indicate that, or you state that Warrant Officer Perumal and Colonel Jacob had a discussion about the space, right? And in particular, you said Warrant Officer Perumal talking to Lieutenant Colonel Jacob stating that they do not have space to store these drugs. I'm just interested in that, at that point. Now, were you able to hear clearly the discussion between the two of them such that you can be positive about this discussion?
Yes, Chair. Initially, when he came and saw the number of bags, he said, so much. Yo, I don't have space.
And that was in the presence of Jacobs, yourself, and Perumal, and everyone else, or?
Remember that he was working with Kenneth Jacob coming from, and we offloaded the bags now. When the drugs were taken